Hello and welcome to the Fairhaven Church Parent Talks podcast, where we desire to equip and empower you as parents to lead well in your home. My name is Kristen, and I am here with two people from our Northmont campus.
Let's go.
You can't say that anymore. Not allowed.
It's
That's a
transferred.
Springboro
From
thing.
Springboro to Northmont, we go.
Okay. No, doesn't work. Doesn't work. But as you can tell, I'm here with Justin Highland and Alyssa Bentley. And so you guys are going to have to introduce yourselves to the families. Justin, you want to start?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm Justin. I've been at Fairhaven since 2016. We'll hit 9 years this year. I'm so excited about it. When my baby daughter was born, we came to Fairhaven. I'm so glad to be here. Been at the Springboro campus till 2024, now at the Northmont campus.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell us you have a huge scope of what you do. So give us a little.
I've worn some hats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worn some hats at Fairhaven over the years. And so now I'm the campus pastor at the Northmont campus. But I've been involved in worship ministry and student ministry all along the way, and continue to find myself very glad to be involved in those things now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Okay, Alyssa.
Hi. So we've attended Fairhaven for a while at the Centerville campus, but I am new to Northmont, so I am the new kids director there. Really excited to be there.
Yeah.
My family and I, we all moved from Centerville, so my parents, my husband, my kiddos. I have an 8, 6, and almost 2-year-old. And so we're very excited to be part of the Northmont family.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's so fun to have both of you in the room.
Yeah.
Representing.
We're so glad to
We're
be here
excited.
on the Northmont family podcast of the day. So cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Okay, so I told you I was going to ask you a fun question.
And it just says fun question.
It only says
We don't
fun
know
question.
what it is.
Okay.
I could not prepare.
You could not prepare. I
She's
know.
a preparer.
This is so random, but real quick, favorite pizza topping?
Let's go. Okay, pizza topping. Anything that goes on a pizza, I will eat it. But the best pizza topping is a Marion's pizza with sausage and pepperoni, because all of our soccer banquets were at Marion's growing up.
Really?
Yeah, all the sports ball things. You look at me and I know you think sports ball guy. But yes, it was always at Marion's. I grew up around here eating Marion's pizza.
Oh, that's awesome. What about you, Alyssa?
I am a classic. Pepperoni all the way.
Just pepperoni.
I love pepperoni.
Yeah.
And no cheese. So,
What?
yeah,
Wait.
I don't eat cheese
Wait. So bread, sauce,
and pepperoni.
Huh.
I don't know how to respond
That's
to that.
cool.
My husband's Italian, and when he goes to Italy,
Wow.
they don't put cheese like we do.
Oh, wow.
And so
And the
Okay.
mozzarella.
we'll call it authentic, right?
Okay,
Wow,
that's
okay.
awesome. I am either a Hawaiian person or I am a black olives and pepperoni person. So
Okay. We could do like a half and half.
we could, yeah, we could figure that out. Very good. Okay, so we're going to jump into the lesson. I'm going to give a little bit of a synopsis of last week. So last week we actually introduced Jacob and Esau. So we talked about how these were twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah, and we learned that Esau, being the oldest brother, the Lord actually told them that the older would end up serving the younger. And last week we talked about the significance of that and how that was kind of a weird situation. We also learned that Rebekah and Jacob ended up deceiving Isaac and tricking him into giving Jacob his blessing. So we talked a lot about the jealousy and the deceit that came from that. And we also talked about how interesting it is that Jacob's name meant, what it mean? Do you know? Come on, guys. It meant deceiver.
Yeah, I knew that. But I'm still stuck on the wrestles with God one that we're going to talk about in a little bit that I just blanked.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was mean.
great.
I put you on the spot. So as Justin said, today we're going to learn how God really worked in Jacob's heart over the next several years, because he actually fled from Esau. And he was on the receiving end of deceit. And so we're going to break that down a little bit. So Alyssa, as Jacob is on his way to the house of Laban to find a wife, he has a dream.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that dream?
Yes. So it's a really starts off, you go to sleep, dream, but it's God promising him that he's going to be faithful, that he's going to be with him, and he's going to be with his descendants. And so that's really great. And I think what's most impactful about that dream is in the dream, you know, a lot of us, when we have dreams, things happen that we don't necessarily seem quite right. And there's a ladder between heaven and earth. And that is kind of foreshadowing God's promise and his faithfulness in sending Jesus to kind of bridge that gap between earth and heaven.
Yeah. I love that. Again, that constant reminder all throughout Genesis about God's faithfulness, right? And his goodness, which is a good reminder for us as well. So Jacob, he's at Laban's house and he quickly falls in love with one of his daughters. Jacob, what did I say? Did I say something wrong?
No,
it's okay.
Yeah.
No,
Jacob
I was
falls
affirming.
in love with the daughters.
Yeah, falls in love with
the
one
younger.
daughter.
With only one of them.
Yes, the younger, so Rachel. And he asks if he can marry her. And of course, Laban agrees and he says, well, after working for 7 years, then I will give her to you in marriage. But Laban deceives Jacob. And so he actually ends up giving the older daughter, Leah, in marriage, and that's unexpected. Jacob doesn't realize what's happening. And so he goes to Laban, he approaches him, and he says, wait, I want to marry Rachel. And Laban says, give me 7 more years of working, which is crazy. 14 years.
How do you
It's a
skip over
long
that
time.
and be like, how are these the rules?
Yeah.
You're like, it's amazing.
Crazy. I'm 7 days feels like a long time, but 7 more years. So it's really fascinating because we know that Jacob had deceived Isaac and Esau in a significant way before, and now Jacob is being deceived. And what's really cool about this story is how God uses this to work in his heart. And actually, it reminds me of the memory verse that we have for kids and students during this series, which is Romans 8:28. And it says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose for them. And so that's just a great reminder. But a lot is happening in these chapters. So as families, as parents, I would actually encourage you to go and read Genesis 28 through 33 because there's a lot of important stuff that's happening in there. But at some point, after some time, Jacob actually no longer has the favor of Laban, who is the father-in-law. And so he decides to leave with his family and is now heading towards his brother Esau. And at this time, Jacob, he has an encounter with God, which Justin kind of mentioned a few minutes ago. But Justin, can you talk about how Jacob encountered God and how this changed him?
Yeah, it's important that you mentioned that so much time went by. 7 years for Leah, 7 years for Rachel, and he works another 6 years for the flocks from Laban to leave. And so 20 years have gone by, and now this guy is going back to the man that he deceived. This time with Laban was full of angst, and now he's on a difficult emotional journey, and God meets him. And it's so interesting because it just pops up in the text and says, and Jacob wrestled with a man through the night. And he comes to the realization that he was wrestling with God, and he won't let him go until he says, I won't let you go until you bless me. And through this wrestling encounter, his life was so full of angst and lies and deceit, and the angst with Laban and this wrestling that characterizes Jacob the deceiver. And then he gets a new name from God, and he gets the name Israel, the one who wrestles with God. And so it's such an encouraging promise when I read that, and I think about his life, and I think about the memory verse, how it talks about how we see that all things work together for good. That's not like all things work together and everything's beautiful the whole time and it works together for good. Insanity and angst in his life works out for his good. And he ends up walking away with a limp from this encounter because this wrestling with God changed him for the rest of his life and marked him that he was one who wrestled with God.
For sure.
Story.
For sure. And we wrestle with God. Right? And so how would you say that we wrestle with God? Either of you?
So I think it's really important, especially for kids. We think of this story, and there's a lot of stories in the Old Testament that seem very story-like, but wrestling with God is something we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. So did God really mean is a question we often ask ourselves. Well, surely he didn't mean that I have to obey my mom every time, or surely he didn't mean this for me. And that's a question that's been asked since the very beginning with Eve. And so we wrestle with God in our own hearts with sin. And I think that's something we can really help our kids learn and see. So that way the Bible stories aren't just stories, they're applicable to us.
Yeah, for sure. in the past couple of days, I've been wrestling with God, like trying to figure out, like, God, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? And so that's just a reality. And I think, I'm always saying, like, as parents, we have to model for our kids that we are going through these things, because we need them to see how to do it in a way that's still like honoring to God and still believing that He is good and He is faithful.
Yeah,
Yes.
and showing them that we don't always know.
Yes.
I mean, I should have mentioned earlier, I'm a parent to an 8 and 5-year-old daughter, and we were also foster parents, and we had a child through a newborn through the foster care system, and we were blessed to be able to take care of a family member in our family's young child, newborn baby, for several months at one point in the relatively recent past. And boy, did we wrestle with God through those things.
Yeah.
But getting to share about that with our 8 and 5-year-old now, on what that meant for us and what it feels like to feel like we're like, we've been through the newborn phase 4 times, but I feel like I've only got 2 kids to show for it. I mean, we wrestle with that.
Yeah.
Even though these kids are in beautiful, happy places, now it's important to model that, like you said.
Yeah.
Man, this is not beautiful, but we're looking for God in this, kids. Yeah. He is here, and He is able to put this together for our good and for His glory.
Yes, I love that you said that, for our good and His glory. Because
glory.
we don't always, what we think is good
Yes,
is not
exactly.
what God
Yeah.
thinks is good. And so at the end of the day, it's about His goodness and His glory, and trusting that He has the bigger picture. He understands how it all works out. And, I love this story because God is refining and transforming Jacob, and we see that God restores the brokenness that is caused by sin. So how does the transformation of both brothers in their relationship encourage us to approach brokenness?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because unfortunately, one of the consequences of sin, it affects our relationships, and it creates brokenness, whether we're sinned against or we sin against someone else. And true repentance is about humbling ourselves, A, looking that God is working towards the good for everyone involved, and B, Jesus says in Luke 9:23, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross daily, and follow me. And sometimes that means humbling ourselves. When we see the brothers meet, they're not coming back, oh, well, did you apologize to me? They're coming back looking for reconciliation, humbling themselves, and selflessly putting away things of the past. And that's something that we can strive for as adults and parents, and to help our kids understand.
I love that. The reality is we've all experienced hurt, brokenness, relational strife and issues. And I think the question is, especially having kids and teenagers, like, how do we as parents realistically help them to do that? Like you said, they didn't come to each other like, oh, you didn't forgive me for this, or you did forgive me for this, or whatever. Like, there wasn't like a list.
No.
It was just like, we're here and we want to reconcile, or we want to mend this brokenness. So how do we help realistically kids and students or teenagers to do that?
Yeah, I think I've been involved in student ministry for like the last 18 years nonstop, one way or another. And it's one of the ways I'm privileged to get to lead now at the Northmont Campus. And I see parents sometimes struggle as their students are growing in their faith, in this identity of being a person who follows God. The parents also see the stuff that's like not better yet.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had parents, when I tell them how great their student is doing at something, they're like, well, really? Because they just did this last night.
Right.
And this is so true in the story of Jacob, that this is growing and this is growing at the same time. And hopefully we're dying to sin, and the godliness in us is growing.
Yes.
But it's important for us to be able to see in this story of Jacob, of Israel, that God can really grow something beautiful in some really difficult circumstances that your student might be going through, or your child might be going through. But seeing God's hand in that and remembering He works perfectly in imperfect people.
Oh, that's so true. So true. And He uses them. And that's another thing that keeps coming out in this story, is how God, used Jacob in a huge way. Something else I want to bring to light, because it is really important, is that after Jacob wrestled with God, God gave him a new name, a new identity, which you touched on. But God wants to do the same with us. Right. And so how does God give us a new identity? And how can parents walk through this with their kids and students?
Yeah, I think it is so easy for us to identify with our sin. I mean, I even have a personality that's like, oh, I'm probably okay. And God has to sometimes remind me, like, actually, you're pretty sinful. But the ability that we have to beat ourselves up and to believe the lies of the enemy we're just so quick to it. And yet God is constantly looking at us for who we are. When he sees Jacob, he sees Israel, he sees the son of that promise
Oh, yeah, I love
that he gave. And he will always treat him like the son of the promise, no matter how many times he messed up.
Yeah.
He is the son of the promise of God. And when we can remind ourselves and remind our children that God has made promises to us, that he's going to walk with us, that he's going to heal, that he's going to work all things together for good, we have to constantly appeal to that new identity and that new name, because the enemy's constantly whispering in our ears some lie, some sin, something that's in us that God is redeeming and God is well aware of, and God is looking at you as the child of a promise that he made, and he will treat you like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so encouraging because we are children of God, and that gives us a special place for him in his heart, in his promises. And that can be really encouraging because sometimes sin can really weigh down like what you just talked about. And so for kids and students, it's important to encourage them that we have a different role. We're not just anybody. We are children of the promise.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I could talk to you guys about this forever. It's great stuff. Just so thankful for God's continued just showing how he's faithful and how he uses imperfect people when we come to him and we, seek him.
Yeah. Amen.
And we ask for his forgiveness.
Yeah, and it happens in the wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
His name isn't the way he who wrestled with God and it's over now. Like it didn't.
Right.
It's like he wrestles.
Yes.
It's continuous.
It's happening in the middle of what you're going through.
Yeah.
God is changing you and shaping you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so changing gears. Northmont.
Let's go.
A lot is happening at Northmont. And so give us a little glimpse into this upcoming season and what you are looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the student ministry at Northmont. I'm so excited. The weekend just got over, had an amazing time there. The student ministry happening. We have an Easter egg hunt coming up, and Alyssa just got our calendar and all of our things communicated to the church for the whole year that I'm so pumped about.
You are.
Can you talk about? I really am. Can you talk to us a little bit about the kids events coming up?
No, so we're very excited. Like he said, we have our whole calendar set for the year. So we have a number of Friday nighters coming up, which we're very excited about. Our first one is all about donuts. Do not miss it.
Yeah.
So we're very excited. Easter egg hunt. We've got Friday nighters, like he said. We've got camp coming up in the summer. So all things Fairhaven, very excited. The Easter egg hunt, though, Northmont's unique. We have a fabulous property.
Yes.
So we're very excited to reach out to the community and offer that opportunity to share the gospel that way.
Yeah. So invite friends.
Please.
Like get them to the Northmont campus. Like seriously, it is incredible.
If you live north of the downtown Dayton area, you are closer to the Northmont campus than you are to somewhere else. If you're in Huber Heights, we're 15, 20 minutes from you. Quit driving 35 minutes down here to Centerville. Let's hang out at the Northmont campus together.
Yeah, Northmont's great. So love it. Thanks, guys, for being here. Loved having you. Again, join them at Northmont for this Easter egg hunt or for all the other things that are happening there. You can go to our app or website to find out more information. But we hope to be able to continue this conversation next week. We'll see you later.